Uh-oh. So we just got some new information on the Miles Bridges situation. Turns out he has pled no contest. We'll talk about what that might mean for the Hornets, for Miles Bridges, and just go into some more details on that situation. Let's get into it.
Bees! AB the hero. Back at it, baby.
All right, so as you can see here, your boy Miles Bridges, we finally got some information on what's happening with him. To me, I think this is a tough situation because at the end of the day, we're dealing with people. And when you're dealing with people, there's something that happens with us where we tend to have a past, present, and a future. And when you have a past, present, and the future, you don't want to find yourself in situations where your present and your future is always defined by your past, if that makes sense. So even though this is the present for Miles Bridges, at some point this situation will be behind him and it will be in the past. And so how do we operate maturely, appropriately in the present while also taking into account that his future could be much different? All right, so we get here and we'll look at this article from ESPN. Miles Bridges pleads no contest to felony domestic violence. All right, let me zoom in a little bit if I can. All right, here we go. I got the keyboard right in front of me. All right, so in Los Angeles, Charlotte Hornets restricted free agent pled no contest to felony charges. Now, here's the part that I want to get into. The no contest plea means Bridges, who was present in court, is accepting the punishment and the conviction without formally admitting guilt in the case. So that basically says, I'm not saying I did it, but I'm not saying I didn't do it. All right, and then with that, you then still get all of the consequences as if you were found guilty, except for you get to say, hey, I didn't say I did it or I didn't do it. Oftentimes, from what I was reading, is that this helps in civil cases, especially if it's a misdemeanor. But with a felony, it might be harder to get the same benefit, which would mean like if you had a case like this and then you wanted to then sue somebody, then because they never admitted guilt, you wouldn't be able to use that in your civil case to say, hey, they admitted guilt or they were found guilty in a court of law, which means they for sure did X, Y, and Z. So we want to, we deserve to get these damages or deserve to get this ruling in our favor. Typically, if it's a misdemeanor, it matters, right? But you're saying guilty, you're saying no contest to a felony means that, you know what I mean, that might be out of the window from what I read. Now, you go over here and we see there was initially 3 charges that Miles Bridges was facing, and he was able to reduce that down to just 1 and have 2 other ones dismissed. Which obviously in his favor is better to have, you know what I mean, 1 charge than all 3 of them. So he's able to get through that, which is solid. He'll be on 3 years probation. Miles Bridges is 24 years old at the moment. So 3 years, he'll be 27 years old by the time he is off probation. And I'll say this, I think that obviously not having to go to prison is a win, but when you look at the history of probation in this country, oftentimes that's just like a loophole to keep folks hemmed up for even longer, right? Because you might be, you look at the Meek Mill situation where he was on probation for like 10 years or something like that and kept spending time in prison, not for committing another crime, but for violating probation. And most of the time, one of the stipulations of probation is you cannot have any interference or contact with the police. So if you get pulled over the wrong way, if you get stopped or something like that, and they realize you're on probation, you can be violated. And then oftentimes that means this probation period gets extended. So that's one way that sucks, and you get tripped up in the system. So you also might have a situation where you see him here facing 52 weeks of domestic violence counseling, 52 weeks of parenting class, 100 hours of community service. You can find yourself in a situation where you miss one of these domestic violence classes, and then now all of a sudden you are in violation of probation, and then now this number extends even further. So this is just the hard part here. 100 hours of community service, weekly drug tests, no guns, ammo, $300 restitution fine, DV, obey 100-year protective order, 100-yard restraining order. I will also let you know that one of the stipulations, and I know that's how it is in Indiana. I used to work in youth work, so that's how I know this stuff, is you also, and people don't think about this, you have to pay for your probation, right? It's not like a free service by the government. Like, you have to continue, as long as you on there, you have to be paying for that stuff. So you get an ankle monitor and all of that jazz, which he doesn't have. You got to pay for said ankle monitor. You got to pay for the time of your probation officer and all of that jazz. So I don't know. It's a tough situation. So with all that being said in this update, the question is, does Miles Bridges deserve a shot or a return back to the NBA? That's the question I would love for you all to answer in the comments section. If we look over here in this video, on this Instagram post, you see a mixed bag. He'll be signed by the end of the week, probably. What's the point of him being in parenting classes when he can't even see the kid no more? Bring him back, bring him home. Look, it sucks, but this will be good for him. Lucky he's not going to prison. If he actually put his hands on a woman, hope he comes back here though. Don't bring him back. So you see, you get a lot of, some folks are like, yo, obviously he's going to have to serve the punishment for his crime or situation, but does that mean that he should no longer be employed in the NBA? That's the question. I will say, to me, it's kind of like what I mentioned earlier, right? I do realize that there's this thing that happens in life, and we all, and folks do this, right, where they will always judge you by the things that you've done in your past, right? And sometimes rightfully so, right? You did it. You have to live with that, the consequences of your actions for a certain period of time. But oftentimes, those things that you've done in the past, for some people, don't allow you to grow, even if you change. So you might meet Miles Bridges in 2 to 3 years from now and not have any understanding or prior history of that situation that he's in, and you'd be like, yo, Miles, bruh, you a good guy, man. You seem like a loving father, a husband, all of these things. Life could be completely changed. You could go look at a piece of paper and read about this situation, and it can change your outlook on this person, even though this person has already changed. So it's just a hard dynamic to deal with. But I guess I wouldn't be surprised, as it says here, the NBA has a choice to suspend Miles Bridges or fine him if he were to sign with a team. I expect him to, this is what the post said, expect him to be suspended. I also expect him to be suspended. I think that I would expect him to also have another opportunity, and here's why. I think that the NBA and a lot of these organizations are coming to a better understanding of how impactful their programming is, and how once you give somebody that opportunity and snatch it away without any assistance, or you know what I mean, like you just doom a person's life in a just a kind of wild way. So I feel like over the past couple of years, you starting to see them put different things in there to give a support systems for guys like Miles Bridges, who probably most people would say, man, he's a good dude, but this circumstances has painted him in a really bad light. So I think that in an effort to extend an olive branch to Miles Bridges, especially the Hornets, a team who knows him as more than just a basketball player, knows him as a person. For them to say, you know what, bro, we gonna look out for you. You did the crime, you did the time. You got to deal with all your penalties and punishments and things of that nature. But how can we work to make sure this is something that won't define you for the rest of your life? So I expect him to be back. I don't expect a lot of people to like it. I expect some type of backlash for that for him, but that's what you got to deal with sometimes. It's your main man, AB the Hero. We finna get about her. Peace.
Be the hero. No, not peace. +1, triple B's. We out.